be some high tops in the back as well. Awesome. Thank you guys all for coming. My name is Toor, one of the co-founders of Deepline. Very excited for our speakers tonight. We love putting on these events because the most fun part of what we're doing, all of us are doing, is building cool stuff. And it's fun to show what we've been building. So we have a couple folks joining us. Let's see. I skipped the slide. So first up is going to be Vishnu Suresh from LangChain. He's going to be talking about what they've been working on in the GTM agent space. And we can just get going. Get off.
Awesome, well, excited to be here. I'm Vishnu, I'm an engineer at LangChain. I thought I'd talk about how we ended up building our own internal go-to-market system. So when I joined LangChain maybe like 7 or 8 months ago, we were still growing out our sales team, and one of the biggest problems we had was we didn't have a proper system for managing our inbound. So a lead would come in, it would often just sit in our CRM, and someone would have to go in and research that lead, research that company, see if it ended up making sense to reach out to, and then go ahead and draft up an email. And by the time they did that, the lead might have gone cold, or someone else from our team might have already sent an email and reached out to that person. So we didn't have a reconciliation process, and more so, we didn't have a proper system. We didn't have a proper system in place to help manage our inbound leads coming in. So when I first joined the company, one of my first tasks was, hey, why not sit an agent on top of our inbounding system? So every time a lead comes in, let's do the heavy lifting. Let's go ahead and let the agent do the research, and let the agent help draft up an email. So all our reps have to do is just decide to send out an email or not. So the first thing I did was I wanted to see what I wanted to see how our best reps were outbounding, and basically distill those same principles into our agent, so we can make sure our agent has access to the best data sources on day one. Because I think one of the biggest things in building out agents and even building out the system is if it doesn't have all the same access to if it doesn't have all the same data sources that a human would have, you're not going to get 100% adoption across the sales team. So initially it was just for me looking at our top sales reps, looking exactly how they go ahead and outbound, and looking at the different data sources they use. So yes, they'll probably look inside Salesforce, but our best reps are also looking across LinkedIn to see the companies. To see what the company's posting about, look at any exciting product launches, and help distill all of that information in when drafting out an email. So what we ended up building for our V1 of our agent was a lead comes into Salesforce, we go ahead and kick off an agent, and at first the agent just does a few simple things. So if the lead is coming in from like contact sales or from like a trust center, that's probably a good indication that this person doesn't make sense to reach out to. So we go ahead and deflect those. Leads. Then we take it a step further. We look at the actual person. So we see if they exist within our CRM and pull any information down from there. If not, we check on LinkedIn to see like the seniority and role of that person, and maybe if the person is like a year out of college or 2 junior, it also probably doesn't make sense to reach out to. Then with all that information, we go ahead and help synthesize a set of drip emails that we can forward over to our reps. So if the lead is coming in, if the lead is already warm and we have some existing communications with the companies, we'll make sure to look at like past email correspondences, past meeting notes, and help synthesize that information in to our emails. If it's an actual cold inbound lead, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and have our agent run a search and look at, do research on the company, see what AI initiatives they have going on, maybe see any exciting product launches, and see how we can tie all of that in. And once we have all of that, we'll go ahead and draft up a set of four drip emails that'll go ahead and land in the appropriate rep Slack, and then they can go ahead and review these emails, maybe make some small edits, and go ahead and send them off. And so that was V1. That was the V1 of our agent, just a simple lead routing and email drafting agent. And I think we saw some initial success. We saw some initial success with that in helping manage our inbound. I think the biggest thing there was it helped bring down our time to response from when a lead came in to when we actually ended up reaching out to the relevant person. So I think the system works great, but even today, we still see that LLMs aren't that great at generating like coherent text. So one of the things I wanted to also do was have the system learn over time and learn our reps' preferences, so it can take those learnings and help improve the agent over time, and also tailor it over to our reps. And I think one of the things that I saw initially was we had a wide range in age across our GTM team, and I think like our more senior reps preferred their like subject lines all being capitalized, and our junior ones preferred them all being lowercase and a little bit and a little bit shorter. So how do we basically have the agent learn each rep style, and also continually learn that without making it too constrained? So I think this is one of the more interesting parts of the agent, which is after these set of emails land in Slack and the rep can go ahead and make an edit to them, we basically pass the original text and whatever edits the rep made, and pass those over to an LLM to basically go ahead and look at the diffs, and if there's like meaningful content within those diffs, we'll go ahead and have the LLM synthesize that and store that to and basically store that to an append-only log that's keyed by the rep's user ID. So on corresponding runs, before the agent runs, it will go ahead and pull down that rep's corresponding memory and use that when drafting when drafting the emails. And we have this as an append-only log, and then once a month we'll go ahead and compact this information down. So over time, this agent has learned the different style preferences of our reps. And funny enough, like last week we had an outage with the agent being unable to pull down its memories, and we just saw usage rate for our agent in drafting emails decline because no one wanted to use the system that didn't have its learnings. And I think the other thing was in getting this started as well. One thing our GTM team did a good job was we have like an outbounding wins Slack channel. So anytime we outbound into a new customer and we get a response back or a meeting, we basically share that wording in this shared Slack channel. So when I built the system initially, a lot of it was just pulling down, hey, what has worked in the past, distill that down, and that was the base in building out this agent. So cool. Now we had a simple agent that would go ahead and research our leads and draft up emails. I think also at this point, while we were growing our GTM team, the other thing was a lot of our reps just had way too many accounts. So like most of our reps had 80 plus accounts, and some our commercial reps were dealing with on the order of 1,000 accounts. So one of the hardest things for them was making sure that they're plugged into each of their different accounts, know exactly what's happening in each of their accounts, and basically just making sure that they when they come in on Monday, they know exactly where they should be focusing on. So what we ended up building was, because we had all of our different data sources connected, what we next built was, we built like an account intelligence system. So what this like variant of the agent would do is still connect to all the same data sources, but every Monday morning it would go ahead and run parallel agents across all of the different reps in an account's all the different accounts in a rep's territory, and look at, hey, in the last week, were there any recent funding rounds for that company? Were there any exciting product launches? Has there been any executive movement in and out of that company? And then we also have it hooked up with some of our analytics systems. So, hey, is this company making, or is this company viewing our docs or our pricing page, or are they looking at our open source? And basically using all of those signals to help prioritize and give each rep a digest on, here's what's happening on each of your accounts, and maybe these are like the top 3 action items you should be doing when you come in. And so I think that was good for our sales team. And then here's where we started slowly bringing this out across our go-to-market team. So for our deployed engineering folks, they wanted to know, okay, cool. Like when they across their meetings for the week, they wanted to know, hey, what does the product usage look like for this? For this customer? Are they activated in the different areas? If they're not activated, do they have any like renewals coming up? Are they at risk for churning? And basically help also give our like post sales team a small digest as well on what on their meetings coming up for the week. So we had those 2 systems in place, and again, these were both just like these were both like one-way communication systems from the agent. So the agent would go ahead, run some workflow, and basically send that over to the relevant to the relevant team member on our GTM team. And I think this worked great initially, and people liked the agent, but it wasn't that widely adopted, especially outside of our GTM team. So then one day we saw one of the reps doing something interesting, which was connecting this agent as an MCP through to his Claude code, just to ask it basic business intelligence questions like, hey, who's the account owner for this account? What does product usage look like for this customer? And we just saw this one rep hounding this agent, just asking simple business intelligence questions. And then this made me realize, hey, what if we made this agent a two-way communication thing? So within Slack, we enabled it as a chat bot. So now all of our reps could either tag it in different channels, or just message it, And that's when we really saw this agent. That's when we really saw our go-to-market agent take off internally, not just in GTM, but even outside of it across product and engineering. And I think one of the biggest things we saw was once we moved it outside into, once engineering and product started using it, the types of questions they were answering weren't necessarily filled out in our CRM or filled out in our warehouse, right? So if I'm asking questions like, which of our customers are on Azure, or what LLM provider is this customer using, how do we, our agent at that point wasn't doing a great job at answering those questions, as those weren't like mapped one-to-one in Salesforce or in our data warehouse. So we basically wanted to build a system that would help capture these different signals over time. So the way we ended up building that was all of our meetings with customers were always transcribed by some recording system, and they were sent to BigQuery. And then what we ended up doing was every night now we have a cron that takes the raw transcript, and it looks at like 50 different signals that our GTM team and I that we thought through, right? So are they building agents for internal or external use cases? What cloud are they building on? Who are like the champions? Who are the champions and different stakeholders in place at that company? And then like on a security level, do they need to be self-hosted? Do they have any like data residency requirements? So basically all the questions that we saw our agent wasn't doing a good job of answering, we basically thought of different fields that we could extract out from calls. And so now every night for every call that our go-to-market team takes, we feed it in through this extraction pipeline, extract out these 50 signals and store it in BigQuery, and then we have a job that'll go ahead and look at these extractions week over week and build like a state or context graph for our different customers, so we can see across time, hey, if a customer is at risk for churning, what has happened in the last, what has basically happened in the last few months for that customer, and basically extract these different signals out and use that in answering more qualitative questions. So I think my few takeaways are, I think the biggest thing where we lucked out was a lot of our data, we helped land it in a data warehouse, and I think that was huge because these agents are trained on SQL and Bash-like commands, so they're very good at writing SQL queries. So instead of working through different APIs, if we just expose this data in a data warehouse and have the agent make queries against it, I think that worked really well for us. And I think the other thing was also just instead of building out a massive system, just focus on one constrained problem and build a really good solution there. And I think once that's there, it's much easier to build out versus having a very big problem and starting out from scratch. And then the last thing is always make sure you have evals in place. So I think anytime we're building out a new feature request, or if there's a bug within our agent, because oftentimes you don't know how people are going to use these systems until they go live in production. It's always good to have an eval set that you should be running your agent over before you deploy it into production. And so anytime there's a regression, we'll go ahead and add it to our eval set. And then when thinking about new features, we'll think about what different happy paths will look like and encode those in deterministic evals, and using an LLM as a judge to help, to basically help dictate that our systems are, to make sure our systems are steady and our agent isn't hallucinating or messing up. Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
We have time for a few questions. So does anybody have any questions for Vishnu?
Hey, first of all, this is super cool. Really appreciate this talk. Learned a lot. One of the things that stood out to me, it was like the messaging piece and how you guys sort of improved the generative messages. It sounded like it was you guys focused more in context loading, so like many shot prompting, I imagine.
Yeah.
Is sort of the shape there. I'm curious. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm curious if you guys considered other sort of like maybe more traditional post-training techniques like SFT or RL for that.
I think that's like something that like we've started to also look in more broadly as a company. That's also something we've started to look in more broadly as a company as well. But I think it's much easier to focus on that like in context piece, and I think that's like a much easier like lower hanging fruit, and basically see if you can fix a problem at like the context layer versus digging a layer lower and start training your own models. The other thing is when we want like new reps are going to keep coming in, and basically we want our system to be like resilient enough to account for new reps coming in, and also as rep style might change over time, or as the market changes over time, we basically want our system to basically still learn in place, and I think that's much easier to do at the context level versus going a level lower and training your own models or post-training on top of them.
Perfect. We can do two more.
Great talk, and a lot of really interesting stuff. My question is, how are you doing evaluation on like shifting the base model, whatever is sitting underneath everything, when it's time to upgrade? And when you are making that shift, how are you doing it? I know you have your eval sets. Is there anything else that you're doing to make sure that you don't have regressions from the system?
Yeah, so I think the way I think about evals is like, I almost think of it as like test-driven development, where like, I think there's like the two terms that get conflated are like evals and benchmarking. And I think there's like benchmarking is like something that like you can probably hill climb against, but like for evals, for me, I expect my agent to be passing them like 100% of the time. So for me, it's very important to have like a very constrained set of evals, and making sure that I know exactly how each test in our eval suite runs. And I think like and also in designing evals, I think it's important to like look at like you can use an LLM as a judge in like rubric-based systems to basically decide if your agent, like if the end output is correct, but what's also more important is like the trajectory that your agent is taking. So like the other thing we do is we also look at like the different tool calls the agent takes, the different tool calls the agent takes, and I think if we have a very strong eval system, we can basically, it makes it I'm much more confident in upgrading our model or looking at different open source models and making sure that we can deploy those into production without regressing anything.
Awesome, thank you. Matt, do you want to head up to the stage also? Yeah, over here.
Hey, can you elaborate a little bit on the context thing that you were talking before? So the question is, when in this kind of format, I think there are specific decisions that would be very critical on customer success. For example, send email at lunchtime at Eastern time zone. I think that might be a decision that has worked well for most of the reps. And how are you logging that sort of knowledge in context? Because I'm assuming that would just get lost in compaction. So how do you deal with like these specific knowledge decisions reps have taken to close the deals?
Yeah, I think something like when to send the email is like much more of like a system level thing versus like how a rep should like structure their subject lines or like end an email is like much more at the context level. But because Langsmith, which is like LangChain's commercial offering, is an observability and monitoring software, we log all of our traces, and all this like metadata we store within Langsmith. So over time we'll basically look back on these traces, see what's working. The other thing that we like that I didn't mention was we track like reply and open rates. So we already know like what set of traces and what decisions will basically lead to open rates, and because all of this metadata is stamped within our observability platform, periodically we'll go ahead and look over this data and look at our current agent and see if there's any like findings we can basically bring in to our system.
Awesome, thanks. Next up we have Matt Lawler from AssemblyAI.
How's everyone doing? Good. Oh, I know we can do better than that. How's everyone doing? Good. It's a little better. Some people haven't found the bar yet, I guess. Sweet. Let's go ahead and get connected here. Oh, mirrors. There we go. Sweet. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks for having me out. I'm super excited to talk to you about kind of some of the stuff we've been doing on the go-to-market side at AssemblyAI. So we have a very lean go-to-market team. I myself lead the onboarding team at AssemblyAI. So I'm the lead FTE and actually the only FTE on the onboarding side. So I guess I'm the de facto lead. Yeah. And so we're a very tiny, lean go-to-market team, and there's a lot that we've been working on the go-to-market side to help up-level the customer experience that we deliver. And so I wanted to introduce you to our newest hire to the onboarding team, Joey, who just recently joined as an agent to help us do all the wonderful stuff that we do with our inbound funnel. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So for anyone who hasn't heard of AssemblyAI, how many of you have, by the way, actually heard of us? Okay, nice. Every time I go to a meetup, there's like one more hand, so good progress. So we work on voice AI infrastructure. So we don't just provide models, we're also the infrastructure that these models run on for several of our customers. So we work on the async and streaming modalities mostly. So for async, if you've ever had a Firefly's note taker join your meeting, they use our speech-to-text models to do the transcript, to do the summary, and all the kind of other stuff that comes after that. And same on the streaming side. If you've ever used Granola and you're like, oh man, what did I miss in this meeting that I zoned out in? That's our model that's doing the real-time transcription. And if you've ever used Cluely, hopefully not to cheat on a job interview, but if you have, then that's our speech-to-text model. So we have incredible demand for all these unique use cases for voice AI, and the real problem that we had was just the sheer volume of API signups that we had to manage on the onboarding side. We have well over 1,000 API signups a day, and as much as I would love to talk to all of them and get them through our funnel and get on a call to learn their use cases, that's just not sustainable. There's only so many hours in the day. I would like to sleep and log off sometimes, so we needed some help. So the main problem was, we were drowning in this inbound volume, and so we wanted to try and deflect. That's the natural, intuition that you want to do is, are all of these inbound leads actually worth talking to? Is there questions that I can deflect using a bot? So we procured one off the shelf with our support system. It helped. As you can see from the bar behind me, it only resolved 10% of our queries end to end. So 90% of these still went to a human. It either went to me from the sales side, or it either went to our support team on the support side. So there was definitely a gap that we needed to close to actually get some time back and still make sure we were serving our customers well. The other problem was we couldn't iterate fast enough to fix it. So if we saw that there was a bad conversation with a customer, we couldn't ship a change to the prompt. We couldn't change the tools it had access to. We couldn't change its RAG infrastructure. It was all completely closed off to us. So we needed control, and we needed to make sure that we had our own roadmap for how we really think about self-serve engineering at Assembly. So that's why we built Joey, the newest member of our support team and our sales team. So we built him from the ground up on the Claude Agent SDK. So he actually lives in this perpetual 24/7 instance on Railway. And he's the first line of defense for literally every way that you can get in touch with support or sales. So if you reach out to our support at AssemblyAI.com or sales at AssemblyAI.com, or if you actually go on our website right now and use our chat widget, you're going to get connected to Joey. So that way he's the first line of defense for every conversation that comes in, and we can actually start to make sure that we deflect everything that's coming in on the support side, on the sales side, and do some really cool things with that. So he actually remembers past conversations, so he can remember things that you brought up before about your company, your integrations, all that good stuff. So you can actually start to use him more like a long-term co-pilot or like a true FDE at your company. And the other cool thing is, because we're using the Claude Agent SDK and he runs on this instance, he has access to a file system. So if you run into Joey and you're like, hey, something weird happened with my transcript, I don't know what's going on with this, can you help me debug the Python? He can actually run Python locally, debug the script, test it, and then get back to you. Because he's running as an agent in the cloud. He's designed to help you with everything on our API. So there's a couple things that went into the architecture. I'll actually show you a little bit of how he works, and of course, go on our website and try and talk to Joey and give me feedback afterwards. One of the things that's unique to agents is they really like to have parse markdown. They don't like to go and scrub your website. There's info that they can miss. There's things that they have to interact with. So every single time that we push an update to our docs, we make sure that we check it out as markdown and we give it to Joey. So that way that he has all the latest context anytime we make a change to the docs. So that anything that a human sees, Joey's also seeing in real time and he can give up-to-date information on. The other thing was making sure he was responsive enough. Obviously, it's one cool thing if he can go and work on a long task like debugging or troubleshooting or something like that. But if you just have a very simple question, how do you use this parameter or what's this model name, you want to make sure it's very quick with the retrieval. So we actually used hybrid search for this. So we work with Voyage AI to embed all of our docs to do semantic search. We also use BM25 as a way to do keyword search. So effectively, we're going and looking across the docs, embedding the user's query and seeing what resources are most relevant to them and which ones should be serviced. And the great part is, because we're shipping it on Railway, which is a product that a lot of our go-to-market team loves for shipping apps, we don't have to manage the infrastructure. So any single time we push an update to the repo for Joey, he goes live to all of our customers across our website. So there's nothing else that we really have to maintain. We can just focus on coaching him up and making sure he's effective, and Joey handles the rest. So I'll give you a quick overview of how he works and the things you can do with him and kind of how we built him. So the interesting thing with checking all this out, is we check all the docs out in Markdown, so he has this in his local file system. So even if he's not able to do retrieval, he's able to search the file system using the command line, so he can go and find something related to pricing, or a change log, or SLA, and deflect a lot of those common questions around policies or data retention and things like that. The other thing that we've recently given him is pricing. You can negotiate with Joey. So if you want to chat with him about how much usage you have at Assembly, he can offer you a rate. If he doesn't feel comfortable giving you the rate, he'll escalate to me, and then you can chat with me about your pricing. But these are kind of the things that we've been building into him to help deflect a lot of the very common conversations we have with customers, and really train him up on the exact conversations that I have every day. And he just is served up as a Docker file, so this is some way that we can just run him in a container. We can manage the dependencies ourselves, we can change integrations, and we really have a lot more control, especially when it comes to changing this giant Claude MD to give him tools and instructions and make sure he has all that good context. So anytime you go on our website, you'll see this little chat widget in the corner that I'm running locally, which is the way that all of our go-to-market team usually tests things. So you can interact with him locally and use this widget if you're on the go-to-market team at Assembly. It has these common bookmarks and actually has a live integration with the status page. So if you're getting like a 500 or something like that, this is actually pulling from our live status page to deflect those common questions before you even have to talk to Joey. But in general, he'll introduce himself because he's pretty polite from my experience of interacting with him. But, you know, hey Joey, how do I build a voice agent on AssemblyAI? So before, you would probably just wait for about 15 to 30 seconds and he would just paste this huge amount of text and you wouldn't really know what he was doing in the meantime. So as you saw there, he was able to do thinking. He would tell you he's searching the docs, that he's actually looking something up. So it's a much better experience because you know the agent's actually listening to you and doing something. And as you saw, we're able to stream the response, so you get a really, really fast time to first token, and it feels responsive when you're getting this type of help. And all of this is sourced from the docs in our pricing page, so he blends all of that information together into a really well-crafted response that's trained on previous responses that I've given to customers and other people on our go-to-market team. So you can see, you know, hey, here's some code samples. This is like the minimum session config I'd recommend, a couple different other resources, and things like that. And we can also measure his latency. Cool thing with the model being Claude is that it's multimodal. You can also send him screenshots and be like, hey, I see this error in Python. I have no idea what's going on. And Joey can take a look at that as well and help you debug. So this has been a really cool experiment for us and something that we've been able to build. And so probably the question that you're wondering about is like, well, what did this do for AssemblyAI? Like, is this even a good experience? But in the first week that we deployed him, completely vibe coded using Claude Code, our escalation rate, or our resolution rate, I should say, went from 10% to 80%. So now Joey, end to end, without ever having to escalate to a human, answers 80% of all of our inbound contact sales and support queries, which has really been amazing for not only freeing up my bandwidth, but also making sure that customers get really fast, really good 24/7 support. A lot of people tend to like game these metrics sometimes because they're actually like, oh, he does 80% well when you only give him these type of questions, which is not how Joey works. We unleashed him to all of our customers through all of our channels, so he is 100% the first touch thing that you'll interact with, regardless of how you try to get in touch with AssemblyAI. And generally, all the escalations that he's doing are for the right reasons. Maybe it is like a red line to our terms of service, and we love Joey, but he's not a lawyer. We shouldn't be having him negotiate red lines with you. If you want to do like a live pair programming call, he's not capable of that yet, but one of the cool things, since we work at a voice AI company and building a voice agent API, is we're going to give Joey a voice very soon. So you'll be able to call in to a number at any point and get real help. And eventually we'll probably give him an avatar, so if you want to book time on Joey's calendar, you can do that. And the great part about his calendar is, since there's many Joeys, he always has time, and he can always chat with you. So there's going to be some cool parts to it. And we do all of this for under $1,000 a month. Basically about half of that. And so you can imagine what we were spending before in just time with our support engineers, with myself, just to answer these kind of boilerplate questions. And now that we can see every single chat that Joey has and everything that he manages, we get this really great list of things that we need to improve about our self-service experience. And he really contributes to like the feedback loop at our company. So if we notice that he's not answering questions about a BAA properly, or he's giving incorrect pricing, or if it's hard for him to find a specific model, it's probably hard for a human to find that information on our docs too. And so it gives us really good signal of stuff that we should be improving about our API experience, about our documentation, and just making things easier to find out. And so he really contributes to the team, not just only in taking on this workload of talking to so many people, but he's also giving us feedback on exactly what stuff is hard to find and things that are not agent friendly, which is really the world that we're headed towards. So if there's any takeaway I had to leave you with, it's that you should build your own Joey. You should hire Joey. You should try and experiment with doing this, whether it's for an internal agent, which we also have at Assembly that is kind of out of the scope of this talk right now, or if you want to introduce it to your customers and have it be another resource, like find ultimately what your go-to-market team repeats every single day that they spend so much time on, and just give an agent the context of how you want it to deal with it. Like Joey, we built in 1 week just talking to Claude Code, where initially I asked it, what do you think I do at AssemblyAI? And like, what do you think I spend the most time on? And that's what the basis for our Claude MD was, hey, it looks like you talk to customers a lot about this, and it looks like you chat with them about pricing, and all of that good stuff. And so you can give a context on your work, connect it to the right tools and all the systems that you use. And especially if you give it a sandbox, it can do really incredible things with MCP, with running stuff locally. It can run benchmarks for customers. Like, giving it that infrastructure makes these agents so much more powerful in being able to do tasks that typically would require a human. And then don't feel, like you have to get it perfect. It's always like the ship fast mentality. We shipped this in 1 week, and sure, the first week was a little bumpy. There were things that we needed to coach Joey on. There were things that we needed to correct. But ultimately, he was still saving us time from day one. And the great part about deploying on Railway and doing this with Claude Code is if we see that he had a bad conversation or if a customer was unsatisfied, we can go into Claude Code. It has all the context of how Joey works. We can ask it, why do you think Joey got this wrong? Iterate on it, change the Claude MD, and then ship a new version within about 30 seconds. And so everyone on the go-to-market team can monitor what Joey's doing, can improve his capabilities because we're able to vibe code so well and ship these updates. So I would just encourage you to experiment with like what this agent SDK is capable of, and then also make sure that don't spend time on stuff that doesn't matter for your customers. Make sure that they're giving them the best experience possible, and sometimes that's not always with the human. So yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed meeting Joey, and thanks for having me.
So we can do 2 questions. Yes.
Great talk, loved it. What stops users from using Joey as a free LLM proxy?
Yeah, so guardrails are really fun to work on. We didn't have too much of a problem with that, surprisingly, in the early days. Like, if you provide a really robust Claude MD, we initially found that if there were things that he wasn't comfortable answering, he would deflect and tell the user that, like, that's not what I meant for, I'm a support bot, this is what I do. There's also a safety filter that he goes through for every response that does have some other guardrails and like manual checks where he's not evaluating himself and his confidence level, but we're checking like, is he leaking internal information? Did he use a tool he wasn't supposed to? Did he try and call some, CLI that he wasn't supposed to? So there's other checks that you'll want to have in place, but surprisingly, I found that compared to other LMs that we'd work with, if you give Claude very clear instructions on what its scope is and isn't, it actually obeyed them really well. So we've had people try to do that, where it's like the infamous example of like getting a Silverado for like $1 from Chevy, if anyone saw that. Like, people have tried to do crazy stuff, and Joey holds the line. He does a pretty good job. So he won't help you with your homework, but he'll help you with assembly.
Cool, great presentation. Voice agents, yeah, so I was wondering, you're gonna give voice to Joey soon. Are customers implementing like SDR type scenarios with AssemblyAI in a similar fashion to like Joey, or could you double click into that for me?
Yeah, definitely. It's a very common use case. Voice is really one of those other ways that it's just a faster way for humans to interact with these agents. And so, one of the common bots and things that people build or voice agents is either SDRs or customer support bots or like drive-through use cases, especially where it is like that first line of defense. And you can go above and beyond and have it escalate to a human to have it give a good experience, but more often than not, you'd probably just rather talk to a good agent. And so, I think that's what we're really interested to like dog food and test ourselves by building it in. But we've seen plenty of our customers doing that.
Next up, we have Scott from EXA.
Hey, can everyone hear me? Sweet. All right, hey, I'm Scott. I work on product at EXA. For those of you that don't know what EXA is, if the Wi-Fi works, we basically build web search for agents. Also includes all these fancy things like people and company search and searching through GitHub repos and basically anything that's, any bit of information that is on the web. If you've ever used Cursor or Cognition's coding tools or a bunch of other products, HubSpot, Notion, they use us inside of their agents to basically bring in all the context from the web. And so a big part of my job is figuring out how can we grow this to new markets. We're like dominating this like AI coding agent market. How can we expand? And I was thinking, I gave a talk about 2-ish weeks ago about all of these various different GTM systems that we've built out to use our own API to basically enrich all this information about our customers when they're inbounding, and also to build out these huge lists of companies that we might eventually want to conquer. But I wanted to switch it up today. I used to, after I sold my last company, I used to give these lectures at the university that I used to go to about building product. And I kind of wanted to just like try something a little bit like that today around how do you even like build an agent from first principles. But first I'll show off like a few of the things that I have built internally at Exa. So this is one thing that I think is pretty cool. We also have a bunch of forward deployed engineers on our team. And oftentimes this requires cooking up custom integrations and products for our customers. And a lot of this is manual. And we create all these amazing demos of different ways that you can use Exa. But I wanted to build a system such that we could basically use AI in a less linear way and more of an exponential way. And what I mean by that is, obviously this is just a Google image search for what is an exponential growth. Basically, I think how most people are using agents right now in their go-to-market is that they are buying or building all these various different agents, and they're not actually capturing a lot of what the first two speakers actually really honed in on, which made me really excited about how are humans actually in the loop to make the agents better. And so I see all these people on LinkedIn primarily build out these, or describe these agentic solutions that you just one shot and it solves everything for you. And the way that I find working with a system like Claude Code to be best is instead I instruct Claude Code and I say, hey, go write me an email to this account, go research them, use Exa, use whatever. And then every single correction that I give to the agent, I then capture every single correction in as a Claude skill. And this allows me to essentially build upon the previous corrections that I gave the agent. Unfortunately, as much as I love what people are describing on LinkedIn right now, of like, hey, you basically can let the agents run themselves, if that were true, I could just tell an agent to go do everything that is my job. But that's not quite the state of AI right now. And therefore, in order to build the best agentic systems, we need to capture the essence of what it is that we are correcting the agent to do. And therefore, the best agentic systems are essentially, or the best Claude skills, as an example, are essentially the accumulation of every correction that we've given the agent. And so the way that I like to think about what even is an agent and its anatomy, and then I'll get into some of the cool stuff I built, is essentially we can call Claude's or Anthropic's agent SDK or any of these agentic LLMs, and we can basically give it a context, internal data about our company, external data about the world, and we give it tools. It's really not that fancy. But in order to do everything that is required for our go-to-market team, which is like these million different tasks, this is just me like hitting Claude and being like, hey, what's everything that we do internally right now? Just like look at our Slack. In order to do all these various different things, we need to actually do them manually ourselves, and then I basically am just correcting the agent, and then storing that away. And now we can build really cool things on top of it. So one of these cool things I built for our team is I want to be able to, we are entering this new market of, hey, you can use Exa Web Search to also win to also find out information about people and companies for your own go-to-market. And so what are these cool things that we could build with Exa? And by building out this toolkit on top of all the skills that I built out, suddenly any single AI go-to-market tool could probably be recreated with this with just a matter of minutes. So for example, many of you have used Claude. This is one Exa API call, and this is how we can basically demo Exa to basically build out an enriched table. We also can do account research briefs. If I put in, for example, CRO of Stripe, suddenly we have an entire account research product that can be built on this where every single source is cited. We can do outbound email in the same way. And what this allows us to do is now with a single prompt, build an SDR workflow. This took 5 minutes in Claude. This was literally my prompt. We built out an entire tool that we can demo to a customer that's building out AI SDRs. And I can put in, hey, I'm Scott, I work at Exa. It'll autofill the rest of the fields. I can rebuild a target account list. And then for each of these target accounts that's going to use Exa to go enrich, it then gives me the choices of, hey, here's a recent signal about each one. Let's draft an email to them. And so by building out all of the primitives of every single way that our product can be used for this category, we can now take all of this, dump it into a big Claude skill, which is attached here, and I can just say, go build an SDR workflow, and it will build out this entire workflow that we can show off on a call 5 minutes later. We've also built out similar tools for proposals. So if I'm going to go be an SDR and I'm going to go pitch a client, it's built on the same Claude skill that we used for these ones. And now I can say, hey, 11x, who is a customer of ours actually, here's a proposal for how you could use Exa for our product. Here's the demo inside of the proposal itself. Your customers could be using this today. So the way that we think about our own go-to-market at Exa is primarily about how can we use Exa itself as the data engine for doing all these various different tasks and feeding out the context layer of these models. Right now, I would say the intelligence of the models and the AI coding space and Claude Code itself has proven this out. The intelligence of the models is good enough. Maybe even with like Claude Fable 5, like it's going to be insane. And these models will continually get better and better. But the missing component primarily is the way that we configure these agents and the context that we give them. And so the more that we can build on top of every single previous bit of context that we've given it, and we see, hey, that thing worked, hey, that thing didn't work, suddenly we can build out tools like these such that we can cook up custom demos, such that we can cook up custom proposals, and then soon, hopefully, do all the crazy things that we saw in the first two demos as we're growing our go-to-market team right now to basically respond to inbound support and everything, even building out custom demos on the fly as an inbound lead comes in. So that's primarily what I wanted to leave you with here today. There's a lot of cool demos I could go into, but I'd rather actually spend the time on Q&A and think about, I'm very curious if you throw me like an example agent that you would want to build out, I would love to actually just walk through how I'd approach it.
Perfect. We have time for two.
Great talk. So I think for a lot of folks building agents, they have the advantage of having the context, the data, and all of that. How does this work for when you're at the 0 to 1 stage? You have pretty much 0, right? Maybe you can ask Claude what's going on in the world and this and that, but you don't have all of that bank of knowledge and data to work from. What do you do?
That's a really great question. How do you do the 0 to 1? The way that I would start it, and this gets me very excited, because I think when you are going 0 to 1, every single bit of context that you give a model is like gold, because it's just you and like probably the founders and like maybe a couple other people. And so the source of truth of like what is actually correct and what actually your company does, every single word that you put into that model is essentially something that you will want to capture as your context. And so, yeah, you might not have this treasure trove of like your entire serum of every deal that you've won and so on and so forth. But now that you're starting from the ground up, if everything that you capture is captured as data, even if you're like in a Claude Code session, what I do is I actually just pull the transcripts of all my Claude Code sessions. Or at the end of a great session, I have built out a skill to basically say, hey, build me a new skill that captures every single correction that I've given the agent in this skill. Use my exact wording verbatim as much as you can, and capture that so that the next time I do this exact same task, apply all of my thought that I put into this task to that one as well. And so I actually think that you could probably build up probably most of this system in like a week for any given workflow that you're currently doing. Does that answer your question? Sweet. Anyone else?
Yeah, let's do someone who hasn't asked a question yet. Make sure we get some new folks, otherwise we will go these guys. Okay, here you go.
Hi, first of all, love Exa. We have made it default search engine in our product as well. So I really love the output. A question I want to drill down is, how does it work with social media sort of scraping, which is I think one of the really crucial part for go-to-market. We have seen it work really well for fetching companies and people by default, and it has done a good job scraping Reddit and stuff as well, but how does it work overall? What work have you put in to sort of have it go on Twitter, Reddit, all of these stuff to get some signals?
The fun part about the more that we grow, the more that we have to, let's say, comply. And so we don't do a ton for social media right now. There's a shit ton of other tools to do it. Yeah, we use a combination of our own product and various other products for that. Yeah, I heard that this company called Deepline is pretty good at it. So I would check them out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We can also cut this from the video, and you can say what you really mean. Perfect. Give it up for Scott. Perfect. Sujay. Right. Awesome. So we've got Sujay here from Composio, who's also a Deepline customer.
Hey guys, I'm Sujay. I'm from Composio. How many of you have heard of Composio? A show of hands. Awesome. Especially because this is a gathering of folks who are GTM enthusiasts, and a lot of our work is all about stitching together data from various different silos, gathering a single context, and then running tasks on top of it. Right? That's broadly the skeleton of a lot of what we do. And at Composio, we basically provide you agent integrations. I mean, you can check us out. There's like we support 1,000+ APIs, and not just integrations. When you start building agentic integrations, you realize there's a whole lot of harness engineering that you need to do. Everything from tool search, from spinning up remote containers for handling very big data payloads between big tool calls, etc., etc. You can either build it all afresh yourself, or you can just use us out of the box. Very quick, fun demo. We just have a simple playground for you. You can send any command like fetch my last email, and you can just see how much goes into making any tool call happen. So this is what we do 24/7 for whatever products you are using or building. Please don't waste time on writing integrations. You can just use us. And if you're doing GTM integration, please check out Deepline. I'm a huge fan. I basically stopped using Click, and then just all I use is Deepline. Anyway, now coming to what I would love to talk about. So we are 1.5-year-old company. We have had our own journey. We massively product-led, growth-led company, and then as a result, we get a lot of inbound leads, and many of them are enterprises who have certain requirements, who need to get into contracts. And what a lot of the time of our sales reps ends up being all about playing volleyball with the customer or the prospect on these contracts, right? MSA, BAA, DPA, TOM, etc., SAC, whatever. If you are on the pre-sales side of life, all of those words sound like music to you. So what we ended up doing is basically create this internal agent called Harvey. Harvey's cross because Harvey is a taken trademark, etc. But so that's WIP. But broadly what it is some kind of a legal context graph for all of our legal negotiations that we do with a lot of our customers. So at the back end, it's we pull in all the deal negotiation data, the sequences, what email handoffs happen, etc., from our CRM into some kind of a central data warehouse. That informs a lot of it. So we have a lot of precedents that, okay, in these kind of deals for these kind of ACVs, these are the terms that we agreed with. If this was a financial services customer, this is what we did, etc., etc. So a lot of that ended up saving huge amount of time for us. Generally, what the workflow would look like is a rep would start negotiation with the customer. They would take their own time, send a certain document, and then we would send it to some kind of a legal counsel. What we realized is a lot of these workflows or comments end up being very repeated across specific personas of customers, and that pattern emerged only after we were able to run analytics on combined data warehouse across all of these deals. We coded a lot of this in form of a set of precedents, frameworks, etc., that the agent in real time can refer to just aid the rep to handle most of these red lines, and then so that they are able to take care of like 70-80% of the feedback themselves and escalate the truly tricky ones to the legal counsel. In the process, just fast tracking the whole thing. Here's a rough estimate of how the numbers have changed for us in terms of deal cycles. Quick shout out to whichever VCs came up with the term context graph. I could not find a better term to describe the whole thing. That's what it is fundamentally, just keeping track of all the past precedents. I mean, then if you would ask technically what this boils down to, currently because of our scale, we are still pretty happy with the performance that we are getting just on top of JSON-based manifest. So none of the fancy GraphDBs or vector search, etc., etc. I mean, the whole beauty of the thing is in how deterministic can you make it. And so there's some work went into coming up with a schema of how do you want to score the authenticity of the reference material. Because if you're working out of a warehouse, it tends to get very polluted very quickly. And so at the time of a future call, you want to let the agent know what source is truly authentic and what source they should not value that much in coming up with a feedback. So that's the broad contour of the product. I mean, all of these things are literally behind NDAs, so I try to set up a different Slack instance to just give you a demo of what this looks like. So for example, we just run so we run this, and then there's a bunch of presets. Yeah, yes, God bless demo gods. But so there's a bunch of presets which are the actual repeated workflows that you end up doing. What's the workflow like? The negotiation started. Firstly, you get some paper from the customer. You want to analyze it against your past precedents. You want to make the edits yourself in track changes mode, and then send it back, lock it, send it back, and then you keep doing this for a few rounds. So what this does, on the back end, it uses a lot of Composio for carrying out these iterations on Google Drive, Google Docs. So for example, once you get the document, the Harvey agent would basically use Google Docs APIs to come up with comments. Okay, this is an example of what a document would look like when it comes to you. The customer adds certain bits, they leave certain comments, etc. And then the agent takes a pass at it, just running it across the engine, deciding what are the red lines that we can accept, where should we push back, what are the precedents, what are the reasons, citations, etc. And then I, as a user, can actually, in a track changes mode, make those changes and just lock it from here, like process my edits, and it will produce the final document that I can share with the customer and just ship it to them. Right. So this is the current workflow. It actually ended up saving us a bunch of time. Some future work would involve just connecting it to our contract lifecycle management software, which is something that we have started using for tracking these contracts and all these terms that we agree to across these sundry contracts, and also playing around with various search algorithms. Somebody was mentioning the usage of hybrid search, so trying out a bunch of other algorithms, and yeah, this is broadly it. We'd love to open it for questions if you guys have any.
Perfect. Any questions for Sujay?
That's a good talk. So because these are add-ons, right? So are you going to select as a service, add-on service for GTM, for Composio? So I'm a Composio customer, right?
Yeah.
And I want to do some GTM work. Instead of me developing an agent, I will use you, and will you charge me extra for it?
That's a pretty good point. As a company, we have a very generous free tier, so you can actually go very far without ever getting on a call with us. Right? It's a completely self-serve product. So only when you hit very large volume of tool calls, or if you want to get into certain contracts, that's when you would get into some kind of a payment chat with us.
Perfect. Anyone else questions? What was the hardest part here? What broke?
I think the hardest part is, I think Scott touched upon it a bit. It's a labor of love, to just get it to a state that actually works. Because every new output that you get out of the agent, you see that there's an error, you provide feedback, you try to fine-tune the whole rule set. I think that takes some time. I think somebody was mentioning, how do you do this when you're bootstrapping your context? I think it was that made our life very easy, because we had a rich set of precedents already, where real humans, real legal counsels had gone through days of negotiation. There was very rich first-party data on what is admissible for us, what is not admissible for us, etc. But yeah, the hardest part is basically making sure that the agent does not get off the guardrails and is really disciplined in the sources that it is using for analysis.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for bearing with us here. So I'm going to do a quick demo of Deepline, show you what we've been working on. But thanks again to all the speakers. How's everyone feeling? It's been a little bit. I know a lot of folks are standing in the back, so I appreciate the patience here. Again, my name is Sujay Choubey. I'm one of the co-founders of Deepline, and I'm going to be talking about programmatic GTM and how we can start building tools to solve your unique problems. What we've seen is go-to-market is generally a very unique aspect of every single company. So how do we make sure that we're solving it the right way for what matters to you? So what is Deepline? Deepline is a CLI SDK that gives you programmatic access to all of your first-party and third-party data. So if you want contact enrichment, waterfall enrichment, if you want internal CRM data, your data warehouse, we're a middle layer that handles that access point. We're really designed for agents initially. So you use Claude Code, tell it what you want, and then you can deploy it as code, as a script. So everything is translated to TypeScript. So it's very favorable if you're like building internal applications. But that's kind of like the user experience is describe what you want in Claude Code and then say deploy, and that generally works really well. And the value add that we try to solve is there's so many different data providers. So X is really good because it's going and getting public data from everywhere. But what if you need really specific data that's proprietary? What if there's no like web public information here? There's 100 different providers that might have that aggregated for you, but which one's actually good? Which one should you spend money on? That's a really hard problem, it turns out. So that's what we help with. And so I'm going to start with a fun fact I learned at a talk a couple weeks ago. For really advanced sculptors, they actually spend a lot of time. You hit a limit on what you're able to do with tools that are built for other tasks. So like a general scalpel, if you're carving the statue of David, doesn't work anymore. So you end up just building these really like rickety pieces of technology. So this is a guy on Reddit who was wrapping wire really closely to get the perfect angle on what he was trying to do in sculpting. And then this other guy is picking up the bristles off street sweepers to find a way to get the exact edge that he's looking for. And that's kind of the metaphor that I feel like when I'm talking to go-to-market teams, is like they're just scrapping for whatever they can get to solve this weird angle on the problem that they're addressing. So besides the metaphorical competitive angle here, I just think it's a pretty funny metaphor. Awesome. So what I've essentially learned working with go-to-market teams for the last couple months, years now, your optimal go-to-market motion wouldn't work for anyone else and probably shouldn't work for anyone else. So how most people go down this route, and we work with a lot of teams who are really, really good and very advanced in this like AI world. They start with generic solutions, they figure out what's working, not working. The big thing is finding the patterns. You have to start somewhere, you have to do something and start getting feedback. I think I talked to a lot of teams where they're like, we don't know where to start. And the answer is, doesn't matter, just do something. Because any signal that you start getting back is gonna help you get to the right answer faster. And if you spend all your time trying to figure out the best provider for something, you're wasting time. And most of us on venture-backed startups don't have a lot of time to waste. And lastly, like once you've figured out the patterns, that's when you can build really custom tools that are unique to your use case. Because the patterns kind of are the prerequisite for figuring out what is that angle and what is that edge that we're trying to solve. So this is very high level bullshit, but let's go really specific. And Deepline can do a lot of things. We have 100 providers, very broad use cases. It's kind of intimidating when I just show it to someone and say, go type in exactly what you want. They don't know where to start. So the other thing that I've kind of felt over the last couple of months shifting is it's really hard to stand out and go to market. Like if everybody's doing the exact same thing, how do you make your message stand out? How do you actually get something interesting for someone? A lot of people have good products. Not a lot of people have good go-to-market motions. And so I'm gonna go through a quick example of how we are like piecing data together to solve really specific problems for our customers. This one is related to you guys checking in here and how we're going to use that to combine first and third party data to find a really unique angle to get you to pay attention to us. And then the other thing I'm kind of taking away, and Kellen's around here somewhere, and I'm stealing his quote, but a lot of the time when we talk to early stage companies, they're like, I'm just going to do a lot of cold email and people are going to read it and we get 1%, we're happy. And that is fine, it will do something. But if you start when, and the other thing is they personalize it. And by personalize it, they do that AI bot spam of, hey, you talked about X on LinkedIn, and I'm gonna talk to you about my product, which is unrelated, but it sounds cool that I said that. And the takeaway, and this was a big shift in our outbound motion, is empathy and awareness. Actually explaining that you feel the pain that the person feels. That's actually way more valuable than just personalizing. Cool. So Twilio did shut me down while I was testing, so we're not going to do the text anymore. But initially it was going to be you text this number, and then it's going to send you the information that we gather in this process. But the overall loop and what we kind of instruct our customers and Deepline agents to do is start with context, go do an action, and then find an insight. And so we'll start there. And I'm going to start with this little check-in system. Oh no, that's terrible timing. Oh no, I just deleted it. Wow, that is tough. Okay, awesome. So, as you guys were checking in here, this is not right. Cool, all right, we're just gonna do it live. Essentially what we were doing as you guys were checking in is sending a webhook to our servers saying, as someone checks in on Luma, let's go add them to this list of people that are eligible to win a $100 prize plus $100 in Deepline credits. And then we're gonna hit the spinner and select the winner. So I'll do that in 1 second. But on the right side here, I'm gonna go to a signal. Yep, delete everything. So over here, going to Willie, I'll go into Willie's profile here. So Willie's one of our customers, and I've kind of categorized everyone into power user, intent, how much they're working with the company. We have all the internal data already, so we know how much they're using the product, how often he's coming through, and then I combined it with external information of what is he interested in. So I went and got all of his social posts, and I did this for everyone who's attending here, and so we're getting a LinkedIn post, and let's see what Willie said on LinkedIn last. As that loads. And then a recommendation on a product over here that might be interesting for him. So a workflow ship kit, cube timer, NFC shortcut tags, and a mini checklist. I don't know what any of those things are. And so the last thing he did is selling the AI era. So what we're doing is gathering a bunch of third-party context, a bunch of first-party context, and then we're going to select a winner in a second. So how did we actually build this? So all I actually did was, I'm going to show an example of what Deepline is. It's a CLI that sits behind what you're doing. And so quick start, this is just a demo that we have preloaded. What it's saying is go find 5 CTOs in New York with verified emails, LinkedIn profiles. Let me first check, yeah. So that's the prompt, just go find CTOs. And I'm going to approve some stuff here. And it is going to open a little window. And as it's running, what it's doing in the background is it's going to go try 4 or 5 different sources and say, what's the best source to get this data? So it might try 5 different providers and say, hey, this one seems to have the best data for what you're doing, and then let's actually do 1,000 more there. So as this loads, it's showing just one provider in this demo, and then it's going to waterfall through more providers to get their emails, and pop up a little CSV here. So this is all running locally on your machine, but it also gets stored to the cloud. And cool. And so once when we're running this, we're storing everything in a database that is owned by the customer. So it's a Postgres database that you can run. You can do anything you want on it. It's really designed for vibe coding. Everything we're doing is designed for vibe coding. And this is the workflow. So if you text that number, it will actually start this workflow. And the workflow is, it receives the SMS, it normalizes it, so it's running code. I designed this entire workflow by chatting with Claude Code, and then deployed it to the cloud and said, all right, when someone texts this number, let's go get this information, get their phone, validate it, make sure it's a real contact, validate again, get some more enrichment data from different providers, combine all of that, and check if they're in HubSpot. So I can show you one that we ran on myself here. And we can go over here. And then I added a step to approve in Slack. And again, everything in here is just being configured through Claude Code. So I can say, let's rerun this. And it'll go find a use case to go follow up on. And so the last piece, here is the CTOs that we pulled. So all I typed in was go get me CTOs, and I went and pulled these 5 from Woodstack, Members Direct, Noli. We can see their LinkedIn's, company size, all the information you could want. We tried a couple different providers to get email. And what I'm hoping you guys take away from that, despite terrible timing on me accidentally deleting my database, is that you are able to get data really fast, take that information, and then turn it into a workflow. And the experimentation speed is where we see teams really excel. The faster you can get a lot of data and expedite feedback, you have to do something about it. So push it to a tool, send an email, call someone, do something. But that closed loop, I think loops are really big on Twitter right now. You're trying to get feedback, put it in the database, and then continuously learn from that. And because Claude Code has access to everything that we're doing, it knows what enrichment data you used, what the product did, and where to take it from there. So we will really quickly do the winner here. And let's winner. All right, so it should be only people who checked in. Linus Lou. You get a mini whiteboard, A/B decision dice, and experiment cards. So you probably talked about a experiment in some point is what we're gonna go with. So Linus, find me after and we'll get you set up with your gift. You can also just take a $100 gift card if you don't want that. That was a pretty shit gift. So we'll find a better option for you. Awesome, thanks again. My name is Sujay Choubey. If you guys want to try out Deepline, you can take one of the matchboxes that leads to the promo code. You can take the top promo code. If you guys just want to jam and talk about your go-to-market motion, we've done a lot of these now. Going back to Rosemary's question, like how do you start from scratch? There's like a very specific way I recommend going, and it's search for a bunch of information on public information, and then just use Deepline to go get it. So yeah, grab promo code up top, grab time with me to get onboarded, learn more about how to use the product down below. And that's it for today. So really appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stick around, but we can answer one or two and then let everyone go. Cool. Anyone? Cool, I can do 1, 2, yeah, go Kurt.
Yes, real quick. I know at the end, I don't want to the experts, you can just describe the actual language you want, and it just gives you, just goes to the waterfall enrichment, just start I'm curious, what's the business logic around what determines the waterfall, what hierarchy is that dynamic based on the territories?
We have a default, and then we change it based on the use case. So we'll try the default, and if the default gives bad results, then we'll try something else. Excuse me. And what it's optimizing for, I just made this metric up, so I don't actually know if it's the right one, but it's the incremental cost per the marginal cost per incremental validated email. So adding one more provider, how much does that cost, and what is that cost? And we optimize for that. So if the validation rate is really invalid rate on an email provider is really high, and it's still cheap, it still might not be a good fit. So we're basically saying, out of all the emails that we got from them, how many were good, what was the incremental cost there, and then we're optimizing based on that. So it often has like a free provider or something, a cheaper provider up front, and then you'll get more and more expensive providers. But the expensive providers, because they are more valid, are generally going to be better. Cool. Yeah, we can do, anybody else? Awesome, go ahead.
I'm just curious, why don't you, I know currently Deepline is running on Cloud. Why don't you wrap them all up to be like a complete website or an app that people can use? Because I'm working with marketing people and some of the, I think the non-tech marketing people are to run cloud code?
Yeah, we technically have an MCP, and you can use it anywhere. We also have Claude Cowork, so technically you can do it anywhere. What we found is we're kind of optimizing for people doing high scale. So we're looking at programmatic use cases. We're going for folks who are having a lot of pain with the tools that they have in terms of scale. So technically what we do today works for everyone. You can use it anywhere. We don't advertise the MCP a ton because we don't have the resources to kind of handle the support on that side right now. But it works, it's universal. So we are just an API. It doesn't really matter where you are working. We have people who have deployed it, like the agents that you saw at the beginning. We have people who are running it in Railway as an agent and just chatting with it through Slack. We have people who are running it just API and never use any of our agents or CLS. Our goal is just to give you go-to-market data and first-party data wherever you need it. So yes, we can do anywhere. If you have a use case where you want folks using it via MCP, happy to set that up for you. Cool, awesome. That feels like a planted question. I don't get to say that one a lot. I will let you guys go. There's definitely a lot of pizza left. Feel free to take some with you. Thanks again for coming out.
Scott?
Hey, yeah.
Hi, I'm Susie. Nice to meet you. Great. Learn about what you guys do. I mean, first of all, what I love,
Yeah.
I'm working more like a
Yeah.
and also
Like policy meeting.
No, of course.
yeah. Why don't you want to change this market? So basically, the idea is that
Of course, appreciate your help. Awesome.
you guys working on I've heard that you guys are,
You know, it's on my list. It's, you know, I have this segment list of all the segments that could, of people building agents that could probably benefit from that stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, e-com, from what we've seen so far, is closer to the bottom.
How do you start on that?
Primarily revenue thus far from this segment and how we calculated it.